Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sanova and you're watching Anewz. Let's see the top stories. Ukraine expects a strong reaction from the United States, President Volodymyr Zelensky says after Russia's record-breaking attack. US President Donald Trump says Israel accepted his terms to end the war in Gaza and Hamas should follow. And France faces more turmoil with the government on the brink ahead of a confidence vote today. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the country expects a strong response from America following one of Russia's largest attacks of the war. Russian forces launched more than 800 drones and several missiles striking cities, including Kyiv, Odessa and Dnipro. Zelensky praised the Ukrainian defense forces and volunteers for intercepting hundreds of drones and missiles, calling for further strengthening of the air defenses. He also highlighted the importance of international support and sanctions against Russia as Kyiv prepares for upcoming Ramstein talks on new aid packages.
It is important that today we saw a broad response from our partners to this strike. Clearly, Russia is trying to inflict pain on Ukraine with even more brazen attacks. This is a clear sign that Putin is testing the world, whether they will accept or tolerate this. That is why it is important that the statements of leaders, states, and institutions be backed by strong actions. Sanctions against Russia, against individuals associated with Russia, tough tariffs and other restrictions on trade with Russia. Their losses must be felt. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine is informing all partners about this latest Russian escalation. We are counting on a strong reaction from America. This is what is needed.
Keeping the focus on Ukraine, the country had suffered one of its most devastating nights since the war began. Heavy strikes hit cities nationwide with Russia's largest assault to date, targeting the heart of Kyiv's government for the first time, raising fears of further escalation as Ukraine urged its allies to respond.
Russia has carried out its largest overnight air attack of the war, killing 4 people in Kyiv, including a child, and injuring 44 others. Fires broke out across the capital after waves of drones and missiles struck, hitting homes and even Ukraine's government headquarters. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said the attack began with drones raining down, followed by missile strikes. The government building in the city centre caught fire, marking the first time it has been directly damaged since the war began.
Yet another attack. The 2 city districts of Darnitsky and Sviatoshinsky have suffered the most. We are now in the Sviatoshinsky district, where a Shahed drone hit a residential building.
Emergency officials reported widespread destruction in residential areas. In the western district of Sviatoshinsky, several floors of a 9-story building were torn apart. Drone debris triggered blazes in a 16-story block and 2 other 9-story buildings. Ukraine's Air Force said Russia launched 805 drones and 13 missiles overnight. Defense units intercepted most of them, shooting down 751 drones and 4 missiles. Still, the attack was the largest drone assault since Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. The attack stretched far beyond Kyiv. Dozens of explosions rocked Kremenchuk, cutting power and damaging a bridge over the Dnipro River. In Kryvyi Rih, Russian strikes hit transport and urban infrastructure. In Odessa, apartment buildings and civilian facilities were damaged, with fires breaking out across several neighborhoods. Meanwhile, Poland said it scrambled its own and allied aircraft to ensure air safety, as western Ukraine also faced the threat of attack. Moscow has not commented on the strikes. Russia's defense ministry also claimed its forces downed 69 Ukrainian drones overnight. Ukraine, in turn, said it struck the Druzhba oil pipeline in Russia's Bryansk region, causing serious damage. Officials in Kyiv said such strikes on energy targets are aimed at undermining Russia's ability to wage war. The escalation comes as President Vladimir Putin rejected Western proposals to send an international reassurance force to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire. He warned that any foreign troops deployed would be treated as legitimate targets. Foreign Minister of Ukraine Andriy Sybiha urged allies to act, saying Moscow was escalating its terror.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump says European leaders will travel to Washington early this week to discuss ways of ending the Russia-Ukraine war. Speaking after the U.S. Open in New York, Donald Trump also revealed the plans to talk directly with Vladimir Putin soon. His comments came hours after Russia launched its biggest air assault of the conflict. Trump saying while he's not happy with the war's current state, insists he's confident a settlement can be reached, and signaled new sanctions against Moscow may follow.
I'm not happy about the whole situation. You know, it's interesting. It doesn't affect us because it's not our soldiers. But they're losing now. I used to tell you 5,000. They're losing 7,000 between Ukraine and Russia, 7,000 soldiers every single week. It's such a horrible waste of humanity. So, no, I am not thrilled with what's happening there, I will tell you. I think it's going to get settled. So I settled 7 wars. This, I would have said, would have been maybe the easiest one to settle of all. But with war, you never know what you're getting. But we're going to get it. I believe we're going to get it settled. But I am not happy with them. I'm not happy with anything having to do with that war. It's just such a waste of great humanity.
Moving to Middle Eastern affairs, U.S. President Donald Trump says a deal on Gaza could be announced very soon, expressing confidence that all hostages will be released, dead or alive. Israeli media report his plan sees Hamas freeing 48 hostages on the first day of a truce in exchange for the release of thousands of Palestinian prisoners. Negotiations to end the war would then take place during the ceasefire. An Israeli official confirmed the proposal is being seriously considered. On Sunday, Trump reinforced his message with what he called a last warning to Hamas, insisting Israel has already accepted the U.S. terms. Posting on Truth Social, he declared everyone wants the hostages home and the war to end, but warned there would be no second chance if Hamas refuses.
I think we're going to have a deal on Gaza very soon. It's a hell of a problem. Again, it's a problem we want to solve for the Middle East, for Israel, for everybody. But it's a problem we're going to get done. So they have hostages. It could be a little bit less than 20 because some, they tend to die, right? They tend to die. Even though they're young people largely, they're dying. Young people don't die. Young people stay alive. But with this whole thing, they tend to die. But we have, let's say, 20 people and we have about 38 bodies.
5 people were killed and 12 others injured when 2 gunmen opened fire at a bus stop on Jerusalem's northern outskirts, paramedics and police said. The victims included 3 men in their 30s and a woman in her 50s and a man in his 50s. 9 people with gunshot wounds and 3 others injured by broken glass were taken to hospitals. Police said a security officer and a civilian shot and killed the attackers at the scene. No group has claimed responsibility, but Hamas praised the assault, while security forces sealed off the area for forensic checks. And France is bracing for another political shakeup. Prime Minister Bayro's survival or downfall will determine the country's next steps. However, at the stake is not only the leadership, but also the country's credibility on debt reform.
Uncertainty gripped the streets of Paris on Monday as lawmakers prepared for a confidence vote in the National Assembly. Prime Minister François Bayrou was expected to lose, deepening France's political paralysis at a delicate moment for Europe. If Bayrou falls, President Emmanuel Macron will have to appoint another government leader to push a budget through Parliament. Less than a year ago, Bayrou's conservative predecessor, Michel Barnier, was also ousted. Macron has ruled out dissolving Parliament again. The crisis threatens France's ability to reduce its debt. Bond spreads have widened, signalling rising concern from investors over French creditworthiness. Economist Sylvain Berlinger warned that without reforms to reduce the deficit, rising interest rates will make it harder and costlier to finance debt.
I think we will not have a public debt crisis in France this autumn or next year or even in 2027. But I think that if we don't act now to reduce the public deficit, it could happen that in a few years, maybe 10 years, 15 years, we could be in a situation quite comparable to Greece and with a real public debt crisis, which means that the investor worldwide doesn't trust the government anymore and doesn't want to lend money to the French government, which leads ultimately to a public debt crisis.
On the streets of Paris, opinions were divided. Some citizens called for tighter spending, while others demanded higher taxes for the wealthy.
I'm in more of a wait-and-see attitude, since there's a bit of instability. We don't really know. There have been several prime ministers, it seems to me, in 1 year. So it's more of a wait-and-see attitude, but not a very reassuring one.
Really a renewal, because with the old ones, we don't see much change. So generally, there are no changes to the old acts, etc. I say to myself, sometimes we should create new things to see, in fact, what can be improved.
I think the vote of confidence was requested a little too quickly now, because his policies haven't yet produced any results. I think it's inevitable he'll be removed. Unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Bayrou's budget plan sought to cut the deficit to 4.6% of GDP in 2026 from 5.4% this year, with savings worth nearly 44 billion euros. Opposition parties have rejected the proposal. A major problem is that parties cannot agree on how to cut France's debt, now at 113.9% of GDP. The deficit was also nearly twice the EU's 3% limit last year. Analysts say that whatever happens next, France appears headed for a period of political instability.
Shifting to European affairs, Norwegians head to the polls in a closely fought election between a Labour-led left-wing bloc and a right-wing alliance of the Progress Party and Conservatives. The latest polls place Labour in the lead with 26.5%.
Norwegians began heading to the polls on Sunday to elect a new parliament. The election, running until Monday, is a tight race that will determine whether to continue with a Labour-led government or shift to the centre-right. Key issues include the cost of living, taxation and public services, with the outcome potentially affecting Europe's energy and power supplies, as well as the management of Norway's $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund.
So it looks to me like the economy is really the top issue for voters in this election. So we've had inflation in Norway, the cost of living is an issue for many voters. So that's probably a top issue. But in addition to that, international affairs, the sort of uncertain situation internationally, both in terms of trade and also in terms of the war in Ukraine and security policy, is something that has been a big part of the debate here in Norway.
Prospective voters have echoed these concerns, with some aiming to preserve Norway's values through their vote.
The most important thing for me when I vote is it's tax, an efficient tax scheme. It's EU politics. I want to try to preserve Norwegian important values and issues. It's immigration, try to have a sustainable immigration politic. I think that's the top issues, yeah.
In this election, the main issues for me are the wars, the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine, and also the climate changes. That's what I'm going to look for when I vote.
Russia's war in Ukraine have been particular sources of anxiety in Norway, a nation of 5.6 million people with an export-oriented economy and a shared border with Russia in the Arctic. Opinion polls this month have Labour winning about 26.5% of the vote, which would make it the largest party. Given how tight the race is, the final outcome could hinge on the performance of 5 smaller parties: the Greens, the Socialist Left, and the Communists on the left, and the Liberals and Christian Democrats on the right. There are 4 million eligible voters in this founding member of NATO, which is part of the EU's single market but not a member state.
Welcome back to Anewz. The war in Gaza shows no signs of easing. US President Donald Trump says his administration is working on a solution that, in his words, could be very good for everyone, just hours after issuing what he called a final warning to Hamas. Trump revealed that Israel has accepted his latest proposal to end the war, and he warned Hamas of the consequences of turning it down. Meanwhile, in Gaza City, Israel's military continues its offensive, striking another high-rise sheltering displaced Palestinians and urging civilians to move south. In Israel, more than 15,000 people marched through the streets, demanding an end to the war and urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to secure a hostage release deal. To help us unpack these fast-moving developments, we're joined by Lamis Jadid, political analyst specializing in Middle East affairs, who joins us from Lisbon, Portugal. Lamis, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me today.
Thanks a lot. Lamis, President Donald Trump claims Israel has accepted his proposal. What does this signal about US-Israeli coordination in this conflict?
You know, it's not the first time that there is a ceasefire proposal from the Americans, and as I've learned that none of the Arab countries know anything about this proposal, neither Qatar nor Egypt. So we are just in a social media statement. There is nothing put at the table really to discuss on a diplomatic level as an agreement, official agreement. We don't have any official agreement. There is a statement. And I think statements needs guarantees also, because as we know, all of us, that when Mr. Witkoff came and the Israeli-Palestinian, we almost did a ceasefire, but then the Israeli, after 60 days of the ceasefire, they start bombing again. So I think we need some kind of guarantees. We need some kind of official documents that shows truly that America will guarantee the process of this ceasefire.
So how likely is Hamas to consider Trump's plans seriously, given his final warning rhetoric?
You know, this warning, I think, needs to be given equally to both sides, I think, not only to the Palestinians, because the people who broke the agreement, the last agreement, was the Israeli. But in case now that the Palestinian will not approve this agreement, if we say, I think it's a cover-up it's an American cover-up to continue the military operation, as he already stated. So I think it's very delicate here. We are in a very delicate situation, and I think the American needs to be clearer, brings more details, speak about, okay, now this is the term of America, that the first day we need all the release of hostage. But what's the conditions, the Israeli condition? Netanyahu speaks on another scale completely. He wants a complete control of Gaza. He always said we want Hamas to go unweaponed, and the war, we will win the war. So here things are not clear. How Hamas will react? Already they answered, they said we approve, but we need also some information on independent Palestinian committee that might lead Gaza in the future.
So what do you think? Trump's proposal might include humanitarian relief, ceasefire terms, or a broader political arrangement?
I think we need them all at this stage, but we need a priority. We need to prioritize first now, because really humanitarian assistance is such a must now, especially if we know that 86% of Gaza Strip is a military operation zone now. And somehow now 2 million people were asked to go into the 15% of Gaza Strip only that's already loaded. And as we all know that in the south there is not so much humanitarian supplies like tents, clean water, medical assistance. There is lack of it in the south. So I think first we need really to immerse some kind of humanitarian assistance in the south first. And then I think, of course, we are all waiting in the world to put an end to this war, not only a ceasefire. I think we need to find a final solution. We've got enough, and the world is watching every day and got enough. So it's really the right moment that all of us speak and put more pressure, either through media, through international community, the UN. All of us need to put more pressure, to speak more loudly, and hope for some kind of final agreement.
Lamis, how do Palestinians view Trump's involvement in the conflict?
You know, Mr. Trump now is just part of the American politic that is being designed since ages. I mean, there is no way that America will stand against Israel. I'll not say will stand against the Palestinian now, but they will always, you know, take Israel consideration first and above all. So all its politics in the Middle East is based on the safety of Israel. The Palestinians, they know this, as every one of us know this, absolutely. But I think now we are under pressure of a very, very dense and tough war. It goes to an ethnic cleansing level, and the whole world, all in Europe, in America, and everywhere in the world, we are watching more and more a collapse of Israel image first. Second, lots of doubt about the American policy in the world. And I think Trump has promised to stop wars, either if it's in Ukraine, and I think he's trying, or in Gaza. And we are hoping truly this time that maybe this administration, Trump administration, will deliver its promises.
So as we have seen from the media, more than 15,000 Israelis protested demanding a ceasefire and hostage release. How much domestic pressure is Netanyahu facing now?
You know, the domestic pressure, Israeli domestic pressure, has been rising, and it's always being present. But they are all aware also that at the end, Netanyahu is their leader, if they like it or not. He has an agenda, and the country is in a state of war. So at the end, even if the intellectual, even if the right, if the left in Israel will go against Netanyahu plans and brutality, but I think the army still has something to say, the government still functioning, and he will make Israel great again. So I think the Israeli, the society, they want the hostage back, and absolutely they want a ceasefire. They are all mothers and parents, and I think they know what it means to have all this misery around them. But at the end, I think the project continues.
So what do you think? Could Israeli public opinion influence Netanyahu's decision-making, or is he more tied to his political base and coalition partners?
I think nothing will stop Netanyahu of doing what he is planning to do since more than 35 years.
So with Israel continuing to level high-rises in Gaza, how does this military strategy impact the chances of a negotiated settlement?
I believe now negotiation could come after some kind of ceasefire. I think we cannot speak about negotiation while there is a famine in Gaza Strip. There are people who are pushed more and more to a very close to very dense area, distracted area also. There is I will not speak about even clean water or even food. There is no medicine. the American, they stopped the 3 Palestinian humanitarian organizations to work in Gaza Strip while they continue sending weapons to the Israelis. So I think we are not in a stage now to speak about any political agreement or settlement before we really stop the misery every day that is being on our screen for now 23 months.
Lamis, if Trump's initiative fails, what alternative diplomatic tracks remain for ending the war?
Yeah, I mean, diplomacy is not the big word now and not the dominant word in the American foreign affair in the world now. Diplomacy is being put aside for a while now. I think this is the case in Gaza as well. It's a nice initiative. I think it's needed and it's used in its time. I think Mr. Trump might be serious about really reaching a solution, but not only a solution that will please the Israeli, but also will please the other side, the Palestinian and the Arabs behind him. And as I mentioned at the beginning, until today, nothing official has been sent to any of the main 2 countries that involved in this conflict directly, Qatar and Egypt. So we are waiting for something more constructive and evident, not just the statements.
Lamis Jadid, a political analyst, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today. We appreciate your time and expertise. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Anewz. Now we will take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. In Afghanistan, powerful earthquakes and aftershocks have devastated the northeast of the country. More than 2,000 people are confirmed dead, thousands more injured, and survivors are left without homes or basic supplies. Aid agencies warn the response has been slow.
In the wake of a devastating earthquake, families in Afghanistan's northeastern Kunar province have lost their homes and possessions as 2 powerful aftershocks continue to shake the region. The 2 strong aftershocks struck eastern Afghanistan 12 hours apart, raising fears of further deaths and destruction. The region has already seen around 2,200 people killed, with rescuers battling mountainous terrain and harsh weather conditions.
The government brought us here because rocks are still falling and there are still earthquakes. The whole country is shaking. This morning there was another strong quake and rocks rolled down. We cannot spend our time there. We are forced to stay here because we have no house and cannot live in the rain. During this disaster, many people were martyred, and that night it rained on them. There were 65 bodies. We dug a trench and placed 45 of them inside. For the rest, we cleared out old graves and buried them there.
Entire households were buried under rubble, leaving survivors with little more than the clothes on their backs. Children are reported to be traumatized by the ongoing tremors.
We have no shelter, no tent, no mattress, and no carpet. There is no water. People bring us hot water, but apart from that, there is nothing. We need cash assistance because all our belongings and property were buried under the rubble. We came from our area with only 1 set of clothes.
Don't even ask about the fear. If a car passes by here, the children get scared and start crying. I carry this one in my arms all day long. Even a slight shake makes them afraid.
The first quake, of magnitude 6, struck just before midnight on Sunday at a shallow depth of 10 kilometres. It caused widespread damage in Nangarhar and Kunar provinces. A second earthquake, magnitude 5.5, hit on Tuesday, causing landslides and blocking roads to remote villages, interrupting rescue operations. Survivors are struggling for basic necessities, while the United Nations and other agencies warn of a critical need for funds, food, medical supplies and shelter. The World Health Organization is seeking $4 million to respond. Turkish Red Crescent vehicles have been seen in Kunar, but overall aid response has been slow. the Taliban administration reported 2,205 deaths and 3,640 injuries as of Thursday, September 4th.
A new stage is beginning in Turkish-Armenian relations as early this week the two countries plan their first ever delegation-level talks. The Turkish side will be led by Ambassador Serdar Kılıç, who is expected to cross into Armenia through the Alican border. The agenda will focus on long-discussed but still unimplemented measures, including cargo transferred air flights and easing border procedures. Analysts say the meeting carries added weight coming soon after the US-Armenia-Azerbaijan agreement on the Zangezur corridor, a deal that could reshape regional connectivity. Now, Azerbaijan SOCAR and Qatar's UCC Holding have signed a memorandum of understanding to boost cooperation in the energy sector. Azerbaijani Economy Minister Mikhail Jabbarov called these partnerships a key step toward expanding economic cooperation on the global stage. The agreement covers oil and gas, petrochemicals, infrastructure, and large-scale projects in third countries. A second memorandum focuses on joint efforts in Syria's energy sector, aiming to restore the country's infrastructure and support regional stability and sustainable development. Turning to Central Asia, prisons in Uzbekistan are turning to books as a new path to rehabilitation. Under a new law, inmates can shorten their sentences by reading, an effort aimed at building knowledge, values, and improving their chances of reintegration into society. Our Sevil Rajapova reports.
In Uzbekistan, a new law has been approved that gives prisoners the chance to reduce their prison terms by reading books. The initiative, supported by the Senate, aims to help inmates develop strong moral and spiritual values while encouraging education and rehabilitation. The law introduces Article 74(1) of the Criminal Code, which allows inmates to reduce their sentence by 3 days for each book they complete from an approved list. The reduction can total up to 30 days per year. The reading program will be available to about 13,500 prisoners out of 43,000 currently serving sentences, though it does not apply to those with life terms. A special commission, including prison staff, educators, psychologists, and public representatives, will evaluate whether inmates have properly studied the books. Courts will then make the final decision on applying the sentence reduction. According to officials, prison libraries already hold more than 214,000 titles in Uzbek, Russian, English, and even Braille. Popular works among inmates include novels by Uzbek authors such as Tugay Murat and Otkir Hashimov, as well as classics by Dostoevsky. Authorities hope that this program will strengthen rehabilitation and help offenders return to society with a renewed outlook on life.
Remaining in Uzbekistan, where President Shavkat Mirziyoyev held a phone call with US President Donald Trump, focusing on trade, business cooperation, and joint efforts against terrorism and extremism. Mirziyoyev invited Trump to pay an official visit to Tashkent at a convenient time. Both sides underlined upcoming meetings with US companies aimed at building long-term partnerships. The leaders also discussed regional cooperation in the C5+1 format and agreed to maintain high-level contacts to advance joint projects. Staying in the region, Georgia's ruling party, Georgian Dream, led by Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze, has invited OSCE observers to monitor the October 4th local elections. The government had argued earlier that inviting observers was unnecessary and would burden the mission. Kobakidze said the decision came as two opposition parties nominated candidates in most districts, creating a competitive race. The move aims to ensure transparency and credibility, with the OSCE mission now expected to observe the vote. Now, last night, a rare total lunar eclipse captivated sky watchers around the world. From its rise over Africa and Europe to its setting across the Pacific, the lunar eclipse was visible to around 85% of the world's population. The moon passed fully into Earth's shadow, glowing a deep crimson as sunlight filtered through the atmosphere. The full eclipse lasted 82 minutes, one of the longest in recent years, captivating observers across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Australia, with many sharing striking images. Stargazers in Azerbaijan joined millions around the world to witness the year's second lunar eclipse. In Baku, families gathered for a public astronomy event where telescopes and experts brought the blood moon into view, turning the night sky into a classroom. Among those taking part were children of those who had died from the Second Karabakh War. Anewz's Arya Fatih joined them to find out more.
It's my first time seeing this. I liked it.
Stargazers across the world were treated to a rare spectacle last night, the second lunar eclipse of 2025. And in Azerbaijan, a special public event in Baku allowed children and families to observe the eclipse through telescopes, get photography tips, and enjoy short astronomy explanations, all safely without the need for special glasses. Among those invited were children of the soldiers fallen in the war for the liberation of Azerbaijan's territories. Organisers say the event was not only to spark curiosity, but to also give the children moments of joy and healing as they continue to cope with trauma.
When I saw a moon, I saw details. It was like in photos from Google, and I thought, wow, but I see this right now with my eyes by myself, and yeah, it's so grateful.
These events are very special. They happen very rarely, like once in a year, and it's always amazing to see these natural views.
I feel good. It is interesting here. I am thankful to family for being here. It is my first time seeing this kind of thing.
The total lunar eclipse occurs when the sun, the earth, and the moon align perfectly, casting Earth's shadow on the moon. Instead of disappearing, though, the moon turns a striking red, a blood moon, caused by sunlight bending through the Earth's atmosphere. The event was organized by the Amateur Astronomers Society, and it was free for all those who attended.
These types of events are interesting because half of the world population can all see this with their bare eye or telescope. Kids are the most interested. That's why we organize the event. We want to show them how the moon disappears from the sky. It is very important to show these events to people to help their worldview.
For those who witnessed it, the eclipse was a striking reminder of the rare sights the night sky can offer.
Welcome back to A News. Azerbaijan and Armenia have taken new steps toward normalization, holding talks on demining and the organization of the next meeting of the state commissions on border delimitation. In a notable development, the plane carrying Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan was granted permission to cross Azerbaijani airspace on his recent foreign trip, an arrangement made following the peace agreement reached in Washington on August 8th. To help us better understand the significance of these developments, we're joined by Fariz Ismailzadeh, member of the Azerbaijani parliament, who is with us from Baku. Mr. Ismailzadeh, thank you for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon.
Mr. Ismailzadeh, to begin, how do you assess the latest talks between Azerbaijan and Armenia on demining and border delimitation?
Well, currently the relationship between Azerbaijan and Armenia is experiencing quite warm period after the agreed documents in Washington and very big ceremony at White House. The two sides are making additional steps to normalize relationships. As it was mentioned, the bilateral commission has met. It was headed by deputy prime ministers from each side. So of course, a lot of details need to be sorted out on the ground, including border demarcation, border delimitation, demining efforts, further confidence building efforts. And I think that these steps are contributing to the overall atmosphere of peace building and normalization of relationships between the two countries.
So why are demining efforts such a critical element in the normalization process between the two countries?
Well, unfortunately, the occupied lands of Azerbaijan have been heavily polluted by mines, and it hinders the process of return of IDPs, Azerbaijani IDPs, and return of normal life to Karabakh. Azerbaijani government is spending a lot of money on demining efforts, but some of the such efforts also depend on maps, and Armenian side has maps, has more accurate information that needs to be shared with Azerbaijani side, which could speed up the efforts of demining and bring further prosperity to the region in terms of resettlement of the IDPs, building new villages, building new towns. So Armenia needs to collaborate with Azerbaijan on this issue.
Mr. Ismailzadeh, what practical steps are being discussed for the organization of the next meeting of the State Commissions on Border Delimitation?
Well, our bilateral State Commission has been meeting for many rounds.
Yes.
It's a mountainous area in Karabakh, as you know, so it's not so easy to demarcate the borders and to delimitate the borders. So much effort is needed to understand the hills and the mountainous terrain. But I should also say that the two countries are meeting in other formats as well. For example, 3+3 format, where regional countries are cooperating with Russia, Georgia, Iran, and Turkey, and some other platforms. Recently, there was also a bilateral meeting in Shanghai between President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan. So different formats are used to build confidence, to further discuss the remaining steps in the peace process, and to normalize bilateral relationships.
So in your view, what are the key challenges to achieving tangible progress on the delimitation issue?
At the moment, key challenge is, of course, the accuracy of the maps and the sources of the maps, because in 20th century, various maps at various times have been used by Soviet government, and there have been also a few villages of Azerbaijan that have been transferred to Armenian Soviet Socialist Republic, and they are not adjacent to our international border, but they are inside of Republic of Armenia. So such complex issues need to be sorted out, and if these villages are transferred into Azerbaijani sovereignty, then the question is how to arrange access to these villages in terms of transportation and safety and security. So all of these technicalities need to be sorted out in future meetings of bilateral commission.
The Armenian Prime Minister's plane recently transited Azerbaijani airspace with official approval. What message does this send about the state of relations between Baku and Yerevan now?
Yeah, this is a symbolic but very important step. As I mentioned, both Prime Minister Pashinyan and President Aliyev met in Shanghai, in China, to discuss further steps. So this plane route through Azerbaijan shows that both sides trust each other more and more, that Azerbaijani government is able to provide safety and security to Armenian planes, and Armenian government trusts Azerbaijan on that. So these kind of symbolic steps are also important to build not only trust, but also to further strengthen the communication between the two countries. And this communication is very important because there are always some emergency situations, some new moments that need to be sorted out. So it's very positive that two governments maintain this open dialogue and very timely communication between the two capitals.
Mr. Ismailzadeh, from Azerbaijan's perspective, what are the main expectations from Armenia in the next stage of negotiations?
Well, definitely the next important step, and I would say one of the main remaining important steps, is the referendum that needs to be done in Armenia to change the constitution so that this constitution does not have any territorial claims on Azerbaijani territory as currently it has. So once the referendum is done, I think that in the next several months, if this referendum is conducted, we will be able to see that not only Armenian government supports the peace process, but also Armenian people and Armenian society endorse this peace process. And in that way, I think that further there will not be many major obstacles remaining on the negotiation table.
So what do you think? What impact could successful border delimitation and demining have on long-term stability in the South Caucasus?
I think that it would be very important to finalize this process so that both countries understand each other's international borders. They respect these borders. There is no more, let's say, territorial claims on each other, no more cases of violation of the border and potential misunderstanding. You know, for example, in some mountainous areas, sometimes shepherds or military men cross each other's borders. So these demarcation efforts are very important to de-escalate the situation, to prevent further, let's say, irritation from both sides or resumption of military hostilities. And I think that overall it will contribute to peace in the South Caucasus. Of course, as part of the peace plan, the two countries are also discussing opening of the transit corridors, transit routes. So I think this border demarcation will help on that issue as well.
Mr. Ismailzadeh, looking ahead, do you think we are moving closer to a final comprehensive peace agreement between the two countries?
Well, of course, compared to 30 years of occupation and some of the very hostile moments that the two countries have experienced in the last several years, what we are currently experiencing is extremely positive, extremely warm period. And the meeting in White House once again showed that the two countries have come extremely close to a peace moment, and they have eliminated major obstacles on the negotiation table. They have narrowed down their negotiation positions. So I think that we are extremely close to peace deal, final peace deal, which will be very sustainable, durable, and will bring prosperity to the region.
Fariz Ismailzadeh, thank you very much for your valuable insights and for joining us from Baku. We truly appreciate your time and perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to Anewz for more.